I won't share, the fear that I'm living with, or the discomfort that I'm sitting in. And I'll also create something where there's a little bit of fear on their part, where they can't actually tell me if they're unhappy because they're afraid that will affect me on some level.
Hello, and welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I am your hostess, Ray Hance, and we have another far-reaching I Ching reading and conversation today, where we cover some topics near and dear to my heart. Cohabitation, healing is not linear. Can you let suffering fuck you open? Eating with your hands, women with native yang energy, self-care and self-compassion, grief and anger, the terrifying engulfment of grief and the necessity of anger, the fear of being fully seen. How is your relationship to your body? What's the fear of penetration about, and the threat of intimacy, and having the courage to let people down? What is today's guest question for the I Ching? What is my correct path for moving in with my partner?
We have electricity, rather. I'm going to take away the word power, because clearly I don't want to say that I have no power, although I don't have any power and I know that. But but electricity's back, and I have noticed that I rely on that, like many people in this country.
Yeah. Are you guys on a well?
No, I'm actually right in Nevada City, like just outside town. But it took us a really long time to get power back because of all the trees. So, those dang trees, they're so pesky.
All those trees have been so ill, and like nothing has really fallen on them in so long.
I know. It's so sad.
God.
I feel it. I'm like, California, what's happening to you?
Yeah. That was funny, because the person I was on just before you was having the same thing of like, okay, where are we headed?
I know. I think that when people got really excited about California at some point, nobody thought about beyond humans. We were just like, the focus was humans, and California is so great for humans. And then it's like, oh, there's an environment that supports the humans here. Perhaps we should have considered that, but that's not our reality. So anyhow,
it's pretty easy to turn away from the more than human world, don't we?
Yes, it is. I know.
It's the center of the narrative, despite all logic and all repercussions.
I know. Fighting hard for that, huh?
We really are. It's kind of an uphill battle. Forget the rest of the environment until it comes back and bites us in the ass. Then we're like, oh, are you still there?
So I have questions. I have two questions. I did locate 3 quarters. They're not the identical year, but they are 3 quarters.
Oh, that's it. I can't. I've never even thought of that as a category for picking my coins. I usually grab whatever 3 pennies are in my bag. Sometimes I do have a dedicated set, but my boyfriend was joking that like there's like stacks of 3 pennies in like ledges in the bathroom and like in his office in the kitchen. Like,
oh, here they are. It's like your little droppings,
They are little droppings, exactly. Like divination.
I don't. I've never participated in an I Ching reading for myself, with myself, or with someone else. So I'm excited.
It seems to be like not a terribly popular form of divination in the West, but it's like wildly popular in China. And I'm still not exactly sure how I ended up with it in my lap when I was 24, but it has definitely been, my root teacher and spiritual bestie for a long time now. So I'm excited to share it with people, which is why I wrote my book and kind of why I started having this podcast, except really what I'm learning is like, I just want to have conversations with interesting, aware people who are also in flux right now and like, but are showing up for it wholeheartedly in a way that inspires me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's really, I love having conversations with people who are like, oh, I see you're showing up for it fully. I'm showing up for it fully. how's it working out? What's unfolding for you?
Or we see that we're not showing up for it fully, which is, of course, part of my existence right now. But at least I have the awareness of not showing up fully, which I feel like is a critical first step,
Yes. Noticing is always the critical first step, isn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe that is showing up fully. I suppose we could keep going. It's the chicken or the egg.
I think that is actually showing up for it fully. I think noticing when you're just like, no, thank you, not today, is part of showing up for it fully. Replenishing is part of the full range for sure.
The replenishing reframe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll take it. And I'll resist it. Anyway, but I had a hard time with the questions. I'll just be honest, because I kept thinking, how do I ask something so general? Like, and does this really? I'm a like a Libra sun moon in Libra conjunct human, and I can't get out of my own way when it comes to needing to feel like everything's already okay. So you know what I mean? And so there's this part of me where I'm like, things are just fine. Why would I be asking questions that are intentional, that are going to draw in some, you know what I mean? So I had a little challenge, but I did come up with 2 things. So
you can ask specific questions. They don't have to be general.
Well, they're kind of specific, but still, like, it still implies that I want something to be different. And that is my
key well, there you go. That's a guaranteed path to suffering. Congratulations. I know. You found the shortcut to suffering, needing things to be different. Happy New Year. So
I'm happy with everything. And this is what my partners find just infuriating about me, is that they'll bring up something that's challenging or they want to change. And I'm always like, well, actually, it seems like there's a reason for this, And then I can't. And for myself, it's the same thing. So it's good for me to do this exercise in a sense, because I have to think about what would I actually want to shift if things could shift.
Is that your first question?
No. You want my first question? Are we ready? Okay.
Which question is most alive for you right now?
Let's see. Okay, so the question, and I like that terminology, correct path. I thought that was interesting. I spent some time just staring at the word correct, because it's not in my vernacular. It's not in my sort of way of approaching the world saying correct. And I fight that. So I actually thought, well, that's a good word for me, because it helps to say, okay, there might be a path that I'm going to intentionally move along in a way where I'm like actually present and actually kind of present and pleased. Those are the words that I need. Oh, hey, wait, those are my P words for this 2022. There we go.
Oh, nice.
I've been waiting for those. Pleasant and pleased. So just feeling that. And so my first question is, what is my correct path with moving in with my partner? Moving in.
I am in the process of doing same and have asked this very same question. So it's a little secret around here. So what?
There's a divot. There's a divot for that question in the universe, right? It's a little like,
what is my correct path in moving in with my partner? For moving in with my partner. Oh, yeah. So hold your 3 coins in your hand and feel into your question with your hands. Like, feel your question in your hands as opposed to keeping it in your head and thinking about it. Really feel that question in your hands and drop your energy out of your head and all the way down into your feet. Like, let it slide down inside your skin, like thick and warm, sliding out of your head, down your throat, past your shoulders, until it lands all the way in your feet. Give yourself 3 deep breaths with a really, really long exhale, as long as you can make the exhale. When you're ready, I'm going to have you gently shake the coins in your hands. We're going to throw all 3 coins together 6 times. So I'm going to have you hold the coins in your hands and shake them gently and then throw them 6 times. Each time you throw them, you're going to tell me how many heads and how many tails whenever you're ready.
One head, 2 tails. One head, 2 tails. Two heads, 1 tail. Three tails. Two heads, 1 tail. And 3 tails.
Okay. So you have your first hexagram is blessed. And you have blessed moving into polarity. So blessed is like the core of the issue. So fundamentally, this situation is a blessing. Now, polarity is enveloping this so that there's a lot of difference at play and a lot of juicy paradox that you could sit in, or could be turned into conflict if you choose not to sit in the juicy paradox, even when it's uncomfortable. So let's start by reading blessed, because that's the super easy part here. That fundamentally, it's a blessing. So let's see, where's 19? You are being showered with blessings now, so put down your fucking umbrella. Don't resist the gifts you're being given, but don't get cocky about them either. They're for service, not self-aggrandizement. As Goethe said, at the moment of commitment, the entire universe conspires to assist you. Not knowing opens the gate so that the blessing can come in. Discomfort is a promise. There's always a blessing on the other side of it as long as you don't turn away. Blessed, hexagram 19, is that gift arriving. Your self-trust and self-compassion are beginning to permeate everyone and everything. What you're being given now isn't yours, but you are responsible for it. Be a good steward of these blessings and more will follow. Ignore them and more ignorance will follow. Natural law is very clean that way. Plan your garden, order your seeds. You're blessed with inspiration, but you can't eat that. So prepare to double down on this blessing with sweat. This moment is giving you an assignment which will let you shine. Notice what the assignment is. Attend to it with tender diligence. This is a moment to become great. Be brave, reach out, serve, be honest with yourself and others. Get clear on your strengths and weaknesses and find those who complement you, which is very interesting given 38 polarity, because it is about being complementary. What blesses you becomes your blessing to give. This is especially true of your wounds. How soon do they become your blessing to give? This pace reflects the health of your spiritual metabolism. Notice, adjust. Bring people along not as followers so much as co-celebrants, fellow tenders. There is affection and care rather than aggressive leadership. This is a time of authority and advance, but not of the military sort. Let people come and go without taking it personally. This is not one of those painful leaps where you might go splat. This is a moment ruled by comfort and joy, a moment to notice what you wish for and what happens when you get it. Does your wish list need refinement? Does it need to be more connected to your essence than your preferences? Don't cling to the blessings or treat this golden moment of becoming as a permanent state. A fall follows every rise. Sorry, not sorry. This is how we strengthen our metabolism. Sometimes empty, sometimes full, generally fed. Embody the blessings. Let them light a fire in your belly that warms the whole damn village. So you have two transforming lines with this that lead into the second hexagram of polarity. And they are at line 3 and line 6. Line 3 says, you are excitedly progressing towards something that either doesn't belong with you or you're not quite ready to have. Check your preferences and open to your deepest desire. Are you actually being guided by that thunderbolt of truth that runs up the midline of your body? Or is your identity turbine spinning out in a fit of, but I wanna? You owe it to yourself to be absolutely authentic now so you can tell what belongs with you and what does not. And that moves into line 6, which says, gentleness, forbearance, and sincerity are the sweet fruits of feminine confidence. They are magnetic as you are now. You are broad-based and soft like a talc mountain. Your soft front and strong back are stable. You are tolerant when people spin out. There is really nothing you can't metabolize right now, and you trust this process completely. Your ego is in alignment with all that is and moving in harmony with what is emerging. You are capable of meeting what emerges with every graceful step right now. Sally forth with confidence. So there's a very interesting polarity between lines 3 and 6 there too. Mm-hmm. So is there part of you that's getting ahead of yourself and not taking that step back to abide in that feminine confidence, in that receptivity, but is getting ahead and pushing and progressing towards something that either doesn't belong with you or you're not quite ready to have? Check your preferences and open to your deepest desire. Are you actually being guided by that thunderbolt of truth that runs up your midline, or is your identity turbine spinning out in a fit of, but I wanna? And so that leads to 38. Polarity isn't conflict. Difference isn't separation. The erotic field of paradox and polarity is source. Complications are auspicious. Do not resist them. That's a quote from the Song of the Jewel Mirror, which is a piece of Zen liturgy. Conflict occurs when an amateur encounters polarity. Mind won't help you discern polarities. Your body will. Clinging and self-abandonment will create so much discord, you won't be able to hear the difference between you. Softening allows nuance. Don't confuse difference with separation. There's deep difference at play here. Can you see it as a vast source of potential energy, or does it just make you want to throw in the towel? Setting an intention would be a great way to direct and harness this polar power rather than squandering it on conflict. There's lots of juice here, which can be the source of great compatibility and deep transformative eros. Polarity amplifies eros. All human life emerges from between the feminine and masculine poles. All energy emerges between the positive and negative charge. In polarity, we see how penetration, hexagram 1, and homing, hexagram 2, those forces of nature, show up in our embodied ecology. Instead of getting torn up by the tension between the poles, let those forces enter and illuminate you. Sit in the middle of the lit field. Don't lose yourself in another, trying to please. One pole is not better or more valuable than the other. Hold your pole. When you lose yourself in relationship, when you forget what note you came in singing, you lose the juice. Conflict and separation arise when we resist difference, when we won't love people just as they are. When we have the energetic agility to meet what is without needing it to be something else, we remain in love. We rise in love rather than fall. We grow out of the ground rather than splatting into it. Step toward what is hot when you are cold. When you are hungry, eat. When you are tired, sleep. Allow yourself to be moved by desire, seeking a new gradient until there is equilibrium again. And then again, a cold wind blows, a beam blazes in, night falls, and we are once again moved. This is the energetic reality of life. Clinging to stability is another way of embodying scarcity. If we don't attend first to the polarity within, we're likely to get sloppy with the polarities without. We have to dissolve to reality. We have to dissolve to really know polarity. The senses alone can't help you here. Swing open the gates. Let life show you the way.
Clinging to stability. Do you see that one? What is that?
Another way of embodying scarcity.
Yeah.
Is that, how did that land?
Interesting. The whole thing? How did that land? All of it?
Did that line in particular come out?
I just was trying to figure out what that was. I think that my stability in this situation is my own independence, quote unquote, just myself, my daughter. We have developed just sort of it's us, not against the world, but we it's us, and this is a situation where we'd be coming together as in some kind of a unit with somebody else, and there's lots to navigate. Should I reflect on what you just said? Is that what you're asking me to do now?
Yeah. Well, I'm asking how that landed in terms of your question, and like where is that? What's the tender thing under the thing of opening up that 2-star system of you and your daughter?
Probably a lifetime of protection. And
of you?
Of me, absolutely. So my, I guess my feedback from other humans is of detachment, and that's where I roll to. And I tend to, but which would be fine, except that it begins to create difference, like in difference, not in a way that's healthy, like we're talking about, and difference that we can embrace, but it's almost conflict, and not in an angry fight way, but in a I'm here and you're there kind of way. So
like stonewalling or?
No, just so I have a partner who is very much a very emotional creature and loves to process and sit with things, and I am like, it's fine. But there's a point where I get to hear, and I'm like, I'm almost full. I can't take this anymore. I cannot sit on this couch and talk about our feelings for another hour. So that's me, and it's not that I'm not in touch with, and not that I don't enjoy it when it's just that it keeps going. And so we have a very different sort of approach to things. So when you say,
at what point in that in the process of your filling up does your partner start to feel abandoned?
Yeah.
And
Probably.
Can you sense that, and are they able to articulate that to you?
Sometimes they do later. Yeah. So he is able to articulate that to me, but not necessarily in the moment, because I think he's afraid of me. To some extent, there's a little bit of that, and I think that's probably a theme through my life, that people have a little thing where they're like, she's good at, there's going to be some sharp thing that's going to come out of my mouth, and it's like an arrow,
Is that because that does sometimes happen, or?
It can, but I'm not. I don't feel it. It's not what's happening on the inside. I'm very soft on the inside. It's just that the way I articulate myself can sometimes be sharp and pointy. I was fully interested in moving in with this person for like 6 months or so, and then we began to start seeing like our differences very clearly in the last maybe month, and that's the point where I was like, I'm not feeling this with like fully in love anymore. Like I'm fully in love, but I'm not feeling the move as a fully loving experience. So now I'm going out and looking at houses like as if it's just she and I. But I'm always like, oh, is there a third bedroom just in case? So it's so there's no clear, it's not like we're all going out and looking at houses together and we're really feeling that energy of what it would be like to live together. It's still me in charge. Yeah. So just trying to see where the shift could be here. Because I know this is my blessing, that blessed polarity, blessed, those two things coming together. I am fully aware that this person, that it's just a fucking miracle that we came together. We've known each other for 14, 13 years, and then suddenly fell in love like lightning out of the blue. I mean, it couldn't have been more, typical sort of story. And and it's a beautiful thing. And I know that at my core. So, yeah.
So what's the state of your self-compassion in this process?
My self-compassion. It's an interesting question.
Like, does this have to happen today? Like, you're moving. I'm very tickled by just how exactly your story is mirroring the last month of my life.
You're tickled.
I'm just like, oh wow! And here I am sitting in my office of our new apartment, and all that it took to get there. Oof.
Yeah, it's going to take something, and it's interesting to have a time frame because I have till April 1st. So suddenly, the state of everything, including my self-compassion, including our relationship shift, all the things, it's like, well, you've got 3 months to figure this out. And part of me is actually glad about that because generally I'll stay in relationships that are unhealthy for years. I'm fine. It's fine. We can, I'll use all those detachment skills in order to manage that type of relationship. And so I know about myself. Why?
Why?
Oh, that was sort of an evil why. I could see how that might be. Why? Yeah, exactly. Why? Because I don't want anyone to feel let down, sad, alone, struggling. And I have been in relationships. I've been in many, some with healthier, folks that aren't in that state, some that really needed a caretaker. It doesn't matter. I still am so afraid that they are going to be let down by me. And then I'll have to actually say the words that I'm unhappy in this situation and I'm going to end things. That is the hardest thing for me. So that's my first why. That's not the why before that why. There's a why prior to that why, but that's the first layer of why.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know if there's really time to get into that right now. Why?
Right. And what are the elements that constitute that surface why?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the rescuer position on the drama triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a position of one-upsmanship.
Yes.
I'm going to rescue you.
Yeah, I'm in control still somehow.
Exactly. And it's an incredibly handy and can feel very it's a very seemingly intimate way to avoid intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yes it is,
because it feels so open-hearted and generous. And yet there's a fundamental tightness under it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because I'm not fully porous with my emotional state. I'm not allowing something to come in and I'm not giving it out fully. So
like what you're giving out is very pelleted and very controlled. Here is how I will rescue you. Here are my methods. Mm-hmm. Here is my offer. Are you in enough of a down place to accept my offer instead of an offer of real intimacy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I won't share, the fear that I'm living with or the discomfort that I'm sitting in. And I'll also create something where there's a little bit of fear on their part where they can't actually tell me if they're unhappy because they're afraid that will affect me on some level. It's interesting. Yeah.
The drama triangle.
The drama triangle. Mm.
There's a rescuer, there's a victim, and there's a perpetrator. And once you step into one of them primarily, you will invariably go around on the carousel of all three. And everybody will jump into one of the spots at different points if that's where the relationship is being held in that drama triangle space. And that really makes intimacy nearly impossible. And it's hard to notice that because there's this like toxic mimic of aliveness that comes from the drama that keeps things at this surface level where you don't even feel that there's no intimacy there because you're so busy maintaining the drama.
And I think the drama in which it's an interesting word, because the drama in my these situations, these relationships, tends to be a kind of a dullness. Mm-hmm. So it's not even, it's not like what we think of as drama, where there's a lot of like energetic emotion that comes through, and we're just like, that would be a very different story. This is sort of like everything's okay, everything's okay. So it's an interesting form of drama, where
it pushes it pushes that conflict underground because nobody feels safe enough or comfortable enough to voice what's really going on within them, because that house of cards of like rescuer, victim, perpetrator is kind of fragile.
Mm-hmm. So we want to keep it together,
Yeah, exactly. Right. And once both people are committed to keeping that together, that's where the main energy of commitment is devoted, as opposed to going into that real discomfort of intimacy. And like I say this as somebody who had a full on PTSD from abusive relationships, on all four, hyperventilating moment yesterday about this move-in. The last time I lived with somebody, I crawled out of that relationship. I was financially, emotionally, and physically devastated. So like, can I allow myself to be witnessed in that place? Can I trust this person to love the parts of me that I still struggle to love? The parts of me that's still on some deep, deep down level that's like buried in my right hip feels broken. But to me, that's the only way we can really do this, because if there's no real intimacy here, there's no real resilience and there's no real love, and we don't have a foundation if I'm not willing to just completely let go of control in favor of self-compassion that can then fill and spill. Because unless I can have self-compassion for me in that space, in that terror, in that, like yesterday was just abject fucking old terror. Abject fucking terror. That was not related to the moment at hand, really. It's old. But without that mess, who am I? How am I showing up? I'm showing up not as my whole self. I'm only offering a fragment of myself, so I can't be sad when I don't feel seen if I'm only offering a sliver of myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what it is, really, is that I am so fearful of offering up the parts of me that are less than, okay. I won't say perfect, because I don't have that sort of, but less than okay. That I don't.
To who?
Well, to my partner, but initially to myself, because even sitting with, I am very, what's the word? Busy. and I fight people on this constantly. Like, part of my work in the world is doing my work in the world. So that to me is critical. And I am very present in that work. And I work in suicide prevention and opioid overdose response and all these things that are to me a beautiful way to connect with like young people and teenagers. And those are my like soul people, and But I work quite a bit, and I don't think of it as work in that sense, but I do see the reflection of others when they say to me, you need to have, usually the terminology is self-care. And I'm a little triggered by even that phrase, I think. But I'll take it for now. I mean, only just in that
a little bit more useful.
Yeah.
Although I do love it, but I feel like self-care can get a little adulterated in ways that aren't all that helpful.
Exactly. It's like, I don't need to just go out and spend a lot of money on massages or whatnot. But self-compassion, I think I appreciate that terminology, because that is truly, it's not just a physical activity or some kind of moment I'm taking. It's truly looking at my innards and believing in them and loving them. So and compassion is, for me, is different than love. So, but just saying, hey, okay, this is what is, and these are all the parts of me. And it's okay to feel freedom around showing those to myself even. So that is my initial work. And I do feel a lot of a kind of, I have compassion for feeling self-compassion. So I do have that going for me. So I'm like starting with that. Again, I sort of start with these circles that have to go, from here to here to here.
It's a spiral.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think of healing as linear, and that healing has an endpoint. I don't see that at all. Like, I see it as, like, for me, I see trauma as a way to titrate my metabolism, like to build the strength of my metabolism, so I'm no longer afraid or avoidant of suffering for myself or others. Do you know what I mean? Like, can I take this in piece by piece and really take it all the way in? And, like, let suffering fuck me right open.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't believe in suffering.
Oh, say more. That's very juicy.
I don't believe in suffering. I don't. It's a construct to me that I am like, so this is part of my sort of, I'm sure it's somewhat avoidant.
Tell me more.
Somewhat of that, but my partner is fully engaged in suffering. And, and so I take that and I say, you're choosing this. You're choosing to suffer. Like, this is a choice. And that's not what he's feeling. He's not feeling that it's a choice. He's somebody who's had a lot of childhood trauma, which he doesn't think of as trauma. So look, there's my judgment around that. It's like all these things. And I'm someone who doesn't identify with having a lot of childhood trauma. I'll just kind of put that out there. I was very well accepted and loved by both my parents separately. There are things that happened that sucked, but they weren't that bad. So it's a New Yorker's approach to trauma. That's my, so I just feel like it's a weakness to suffer. That is in me somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's just there. So like,
how have you been called to your work? Tell me more about your vocation.
I think I apply that necessarily to people, because I fully feel like what they're experiencing, what they've gone through. And I am the apologist for humanity. Like, anytime anything comes up, I see all those things and I'm like, no, this is where they're coming from. But when it comes to me or the person I love deeply, that's where I go, yeah, suffering's a weakness. So I think that's a reflection of my internal process around it, because when I see that in him, and that's interesting because it does. That's interesting because it does happen just with my partners, and then I start to feel, and they start to feel, like the judgmental piece that comes out, because I don't do that with other people because I truly don't feel it. But once I get in a relationship, because I think I'm reflecting what's happening for me, it's suffering becomes a weakness in those cases. And probably because there's something in me where I can't feel it. I can't go into it. And I say can't, meaning won't.
But you will go into it with clients, though.
Oh yeah, and other friends, and like pretty much everybody, except for an intimate partnership. At some point, probably within a year, there's a shift that happens where of my,
like about 10 months, 9, 10 months.
maybe 9, 10 months. Yeah, maybe 9, 10 months. Yeah, the 9 month itch. Isn't that a thing?
It's kind of like the go deep or go home.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, you have the baby. You either bond or you don't bond. You know.
Right. Are we going into deeper intimacy, or are we going to just dance around for a little bit longer?
Yeah. And I'll go in sometimes I'll go in. I mean, I went in a little bit back in the fall. I can go in and out. So it's not like I'm totally cut off or I'm not. So it's just that the consistency isn't there. And that is difficult for a partner. Absolutely.
Okay. The consistency with your capacity to be present for their,
yes,
for their truth.
For their truth. Mm-hmm. And to really feel my own, struggles, to go, oh yes, I am suffering. Like here I am suffering. I have a desire to feel it, but there's just a barrier there that I haven't quite broken through.
How's your relationship with your body?
My relationship with my body is okay. I'm a little annoyed with it right now, but I've had some metabolism stuff in the last couple of years that's my first sort of foray into aging, plus with menopause. So there's been I have a hernia from childbirth that I didn't know about, and then they put a camera inside of me and said that now I have some esophageal condition that's mild, but it's there, and I know the healthy things I need to do, and I tend to do them, but sometimes I don't, and then I'm like, but it's okay. It's okay. It's in between. I wouldn't say it's fabulous, but I'm not angry.
What are you angry at?
What am I angry at? Injustice. Angry at injustice. Angry. I try to get angry. Man, boy, I have a lot of anger coaches around me, and I I'm like, I don't know. I just don't care that much. My dad and his wife were killed in a carbon monoxide poisoning 3 years ago in their Airbnb. And we had a whole legal thing with Airbnb. And I never got angry. I always just was like, well, I mean, they didn't, the owners didn't know about the heater that was giving off the fumes. And I mean, I was upset. It wasn't like I wasn't feeling that. I mean, I felt some really severe grief in the last few years. He and I were very close. And just the prevention piece around that, how that could have been prevented, because, we do that with traumatic death. So I finally, this fall, started feeling angry towards the owners of that Airbnb rental. Like, it took 2.5 years for me to actually feel like, what the fuck? These people they took no responsibility. They didn't have to do anything after. Just 2 people die in their place and they just sort of move along. I'm sure they're struggling, so I don't not honor that they hadn't, they were affected by it. But never did they reach out to us. Never did they even offer, just to say, we're sorry this happened. So I finally felt some anger in that case. But I'm giving you a broad example of how much I can kind of just be okay with things. And sometimes I just want to touch it, But
so your partner touches it with ease, though, right?
He does. And when people get angry around me, I am like, that's what's happening here. This isn't, even if he's just angry about something that's going on, he tends to get a little more angry probably at things that others wouldn't necessarily, not in a severe way, but like he can't fix the thing on the car, and he's like swearing and yelling, just like that kind of thing. And even that, even though it's sort of slightly humorous, and I know it's not, intense, because he doesn't really get angry at people in that way. Just things. Still, I'm very uncomfortable. It's like, it's okay. It's going to be fine. Why are we attaching to this thing of being upset about something?
You think part of what attracts you to him, though, is his ability to feel that, and your safe distance to be able to judge it in him like you do in yourself, while also having him feel it for you by proxy.
Yeah, safe distance is important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my that's my go-to.
So can you not judge him for providing you with that thing that you need?
I think that I could go into that. I think that this particular conversation is a bit of a doorway into that. There's just some insight around that I'm having at this very moment, that he is providing something that I might need. That's a
He's
thought
holding
that
another pole. Yeah. He's holding actually that pole, and neither pole is more valuable than the other.
That's the part I've got to work with, right?
Yeah.
Is that I am not, there's not a hierarchy.
You're not, if you get off the drama triangle and out of the rescuer position and accept that both of you are providing an incredibly essential energy to your dynamic, that what he's providing, his ability to feel, is just as essential as your ability to ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we both probably have work to do in that. Like that's part of my resistance too, is that I feel him kind of not judging me, but perhaps sort of saying, oh, you just detach, or you don't, you're just always, everything's always fine, all that sort of thing. And because I'm used to that from humans through my life. And I think there's that. The more that happens, the more I retreat into that very thing, Is
it the more you choose people who will give you that opportunity to retreat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tough part of that, isn't it? It's like, oh, this thing again that I chose.
Exactly. And this happens to be a person who actually, for the first time, can really sit with all this stuff and provide that, and wants to. I've been with many partners, usually artists, musicians, like very much that's, their brain is in this sort of soupy Piscean thing. And so they just go off into their own world. Like that's how they cope with all of this. And then there's more detachment between us. There's more distance. But with this person, he is more, he wants to go there. So I have that opportunity. I have an opportunity clearly laid out in front of me. But I've got to get through my own little.
Well, the hose isn't very useful without the water, and the water just makes a fucking mess without the hose. So it sounds like you guys actually have a great polar pair set up there if you could bear witness to each other instead of judging each other.
Would seem so. I hear it. I feel it all the time, and then I go back and I'm like, oh my God, it's so much easier to be alone.
Easier said than done.
Like, come on. But I crave intimacy on some level. I'm sure it's there,
Oh, Jesus. Is that so? So you have those same basic human yearnings that everyone has? Oh.
Apparently, I am a human being, and I always thought I was some other sort of creature, but
a messy, sloppy human being full of yearning and mess and deep. And oh my God, no, not that.
Must be perfect.
That's so inconvenient.
Oh, I know.
Oh, so
okay. All right. I get it.
So, but you do love being the container, and that's a beautiful pole to hold. Like being the hose is great. We need, that's necessary. And can you not judge yourself for that, and not set yourself up to be judged for that? This is the self-compassion piece again of yeah, I'm a fucking amazing container. And then I can actually access my yin. I can actually access my feminine. I can actually be at ease in the feminine by being able to do that completely for another person. And then I can relax to the point where I can be replenished. but I'm going to honor that I have those yang impulses of being the container.
Mm-hmm.
And that I am choosing people who fill that container beautifully, fill it to overflowing, and I can hold that. And that's then how I can come through that portal to that inner Hyros Gamos, to find the yin complement to that yang inside myself, by honoring the fact that yang is my first impulse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that it's a beautiful thing to be a feminine embodiment who has that first yang impulse. And to just know that and love that and be that so completely. I mean, you're already being it. So like loving it and like not judging yourself or anyone else for you being that. And knowing that that's going to draw in, that your way of being in the world is attracting people who will fill it. So don't resent them for filling it with their liquid, sloppy stuff. You know, like, if you're putting a bowl out there, there's going to be soup in it. You know, like,
it does need a napkin. I need a lot of napkins. Okay, just cloth,
space of baby wipes,
cloths, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, something nearby. Perhaps that's where I start.
Maybe.
Yeah. What can clean up the mess?
But like loving that the mess is delicious. The mess is nourishing.
Yeah. Well, I did start eating with my fingers.
Oh, good.
Since I met him, I have been eating with my fingers. Like pretty much most things, unless it's just, soup, I guess would be a good example. It's just not possible. But, and so that's been very freeing. So I think that's actually created just even that feeling of saying, I don't have to conform to this perfection that's been created in my mind. Here I go, you know.
So eating with your hands, is there sensuality in that for you that feels really good?
A little bit. I guess sensuality. Yeah, sure. It's a connection to myself, where I feel like I'm loving myself. I'm okay with something. I'm not disconnecting with a fork or a spoon, because those are clearly the tools of disconnection. Cutlery is the problem. Cutlery, no. What are they actually called? What are forks and spoons? Is it called cutlery?
Flatware, cutlery.
Flatware, yeah. Silverware was the word I was thinking of, but it's not necessarily silver. But I think that is actually a metaphor for internally what is happening. You know, in a sense that there's a part where I take something and I put it between my feelings and my self and my action, and it
receptivity.
It keeps it detached. So that piece actually is interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. So there's a connection being made there.
A more intimate connection.
Yeah, with myself, essentially.
Well, yourself and nourishment.
Mm-hmm. Self-compassion. There it is.
That is the big piece here, isn't it? Oh. That is the big piece here. And that's in your body, not in your mind.
Yeah, it is.
It's in your belly.
So it's in my guts, my intestinal stuff. Mm-hmm.
And so like metabolic stuff is coming up.
Oh yeah, it has been. Well, more so the last 2 years, year and a half for sure. Yeah.
So wanting to keep things out.
Yeah, my innards are fighting back.
Your innards are reflecting your mind. Like your innards are reflecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
As within, so without, as above, so below.
Yeah. It is.
So are you don't have to share that with me, but like, are you familiar with the thing under the thing there? Like the tender pink thing that is making intimacy feel so threatening?
You know, it's interesting. I can't touch it, you know, because I I guess I've always been really good at not being penetrated emotionally.
Mhm.
Um, Physically, that's fine, but emotionally, it's an issue. And it's like my since I was a teenager, I'd say. I think I had to keep my shit together, and
Being the container, being the young.
yeah. And I can track some things in childhood that were challenging in that sense where it might have mimicked it a little bit, but it never seemed like impactful enough where that should be one of the core reasons. Like, which is interesting, but maybe I'm not sensitive, maybe I'm not sensitive. So, things that occurred when my parents split up and I was 7 and I had to moderate their phone calls and they hated each other and I was like the go-between, or I was
You called upon to be the container.
yeah, exactly. So that I could see that and I could say, yes, that was sort of one of those imprints that perhaps just stuck with me. But in retrospect, I don't have.
You think?
It was no big deal.
Maybe.
Look, I don't want to be a problem child, okay?
Don't worry, I've got this covered. I'm going to manage you to adults who are suffering. You're going to be just fine. My feelings no longer matter. I'm 7. I'm in the tender precipice from early childhood to tween years when I need to be nurtured, parented, and held myself. But don't worry, I got this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, how about the self-compassion piece? Plants a little seed right there,
No, for sure. I do. I mean, I see it. It's, I joke about it, but I'm sure it had an impression. And
it's hard to learn how to receive when nothing is being offered for you to receive.
Mm-hmm.
When things are being extracted from you rather than given. And no harm, no foul. Your parents were capable of what they were capable of at that time, but it's also okay for you to be like, you know what? I actually probably could have used more nourishment there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I didn't get it.
Yeah. That's okay to acknowledge that.
That's, I mean, self-compassion. Mm-hmm. You can be the container and you don't have to be. Being the container can be a portal to interpenetration, to intimacy. Like the terracotta pot, holds the plant, but it also absorbs the water. And if you've ever had a plant in a terracotta pot for a long time, you see that the roots will actually grow into the clay, and there is this sense of interpenetration there and permeability on both parts. So it's okay for you to come in as the container and your partner to be that plant, but understanding that both lead to each other, and that interpenetration and that intimacy can go even deeper from the level of polarity that you have. But that self-compassion piece. Oh, that's so tendery. That's really
that little girl. And my memory is I've never had, since I was a kid, I've never had great memory skills in that sense. It's not my brain functioning. And it's kind of been a joke that all my friends through the years have to sort of hold my memories for me. So it can make it hard for me to access, I remember kind of the thing, but it can create sort of a challenge in accessing the real stuff there. Because I do know that I need to probably access that a little more in order to have compassion for it,
That'll be in your body.
Yeah, exactly. I know it, right? There's my doorway.
Breathwork is such a simple somatic practice that will bring some of that shit up. Sometimes that stuff will come up for me in ways that it has no image with it. It has no story with it. It's just pure unfurling sensation. and like letting go of needing to put a memory or a story to it and just allowing the energy to just totally run, even when it's inconvenient.
Yeah, even when it's inconvenient. You know, I get a lot of body work that works on my belly, and that's when I can really do that.
Oh, do you get it? Yes. Oh, you get that. That I love. I forget what that modality is called now, but I absolutely love it.
We nod. Yeah. There's a bunch of different ones, but that particularly is so effective, and I crave it, and I know that I crave it because I'm truly present with it and releasing all of this stuff. So it's just one of those things that I've in the last year I've probably just grabbed onto because it's in there somewhere.
When I've had that kind of massage, like they would touch certain spots and I would just start bawling. I would just start to cry and like that's kind of like what I'm saying. There's no story with it. There's no memory with it. It's just like that happens to be a line or a spot on my body where I'm holding something that I don't even, my mind has already blocked it for my own safety.
Yeah.
But it's still in my body.
Still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tender points.
And a lot of, I find that a lot of tender points have no memories. Like some of the tenderest points have no memories. Mm-hmm. But that sensation is still there. That sensation is still running.
Yeah.
Oh God. And like sometimes when it gets released, like there's no titration possible. It'll just bring me to my knees in a wave. And it's like, all right, here we go. Yeah. I'm not putting this away for later because that shit will rot in the back of the fridge.
Yeah, it's asking for experience, I think. You know, it's asking to be experienced. And it's like, here's something that was never experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You thought this is in the Tupperware in the back of the fridge. And it's barely, you don't remember putting it there. Like, you don't remember when you made that, but like, oof. It is still there.
It's still there and it wants to be eaten with your hands.
It does. It wants to be eaten with your hands.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Fuck Suffering podcast with me, your hostess, Ray Hance. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE, and send us a message. If you're interested in the book that I use to do readings on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an Evolutionary I Ching. That's my book, and it's available on Amazon. If you would love to help us grow our audience, because you enjoyed the podcast so much, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And in the meantime, God, we really can't fuck suffering until we trust suffering. And in a wild existential kink, we are all in that together. Till next time.